Your Sports 1140 KHTK update. Brought to you by J.R. Putman Plumbing, Heating, and Air.
This is Kyle Madson with your top stories on Sports 1140. Buddy Hield's 15-foot fadeaway for the win at the buzzer fell short, and the Kings opened the second half with a 125-123 loss to the Warriors. Marvin Bagley was a monster, though. He had 28 points and 14 rebounds. Sacramento's off today. They're in Oklahoma City tomorrow to take on Steven Adams and the Thunder. Elsewhere in the association, the Cavs were all over the Suns, 111-98. The 76ers snuck past the Heat, 106-102. Portland knocked off the Nets in Brooklyn, 113-99. The Bucks and Celtics had a wild back-and-forth game in Milwaukee that resulted in a 98-97 Bucks win. And the Lakers rode a big game from playoff-activated LeBron James to a 111-106 victory against the Rockets. LA is now one game back of the Kings in the race for the 8 seed. The Clippers were idle, which means the Kings are now 1.5 behind them for the final playoff spot. Those are your top stories. Now it's time for the second hour of the drive with Damien Barling, filling in for Dave on Sports 1140 KHTK.
Couple of things here. You can change lives by giving blood this Saturday from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. at the Marketplace at Birdcage in Citrus Heights with Sports 1140 and the company formerly known as Blood Source. As a thank you, all blood drive participants will receive a $10 Fandango movie voucher. For details, go to KHTK.com. Again, that is tomorrow from 12 to 2 p.m. Luke Bryan is going to be at the Lake Tahoe Outdoor Arena at Harvey's on August 25th, and we've got your last opportunity this week to win tickets coming up at 8:15. So make your plans to be with us at 8:15. Even if you can't be with us, just set a little alarm right now. Just set it right there in your phone. Hey, Siri, set an alarm for 8:15 a.m.
I've set an alarm for 8:15 a.m.
Now I can win the tickets. Simple as that. 339-1140, 1-800-920-1140. That'll be your chance to win. That way, if you're watching on the live stream on KHTK.com, if you're listening on the KHTK app, or if you're listening on 1140 a.m. here in Northern California, everybody has an opportunity to win. If you're listening on one of the streaming devices, whether it's on your phone or through video, you know all too well that it's slightly delayed, so we want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to win. Again, Luke Bryan, 8:15. Make sure that you are with us. The Sacramento Kings last night. Oh, a couple of texts here on the Jiffy Lube text line at 441140 if you want to get in on that conversation. If you want to get in on the phone lines, you can as well. The Fire Wings hotline. Try one of their delicious 21 flavors of wings today. Fire Wings, just wing it. Kyle, you're really pissing me off already today. Believe it or not, that wasn't my text. That was an actual text from someone listening. And I know how you feel. Trust me. Russell Westbrook is basically
I want to know what I did.
Just you.
All right.
You just incite anger.
Hey, fair. Really fair.
You just incite anger, man. I can't explain it. Especially coming after Kings Warriors game. You bring out anger in people.
I didn't even say.
Russell Westbrook, vacationing in France, went out for a casual bike ride and accidentally won the Tour de France. That's true. I've heard that story. How about this one? James Harden shot like 23 free throws in a game versus the Lakers earlier this season, prompting Lonzo Ball and LeBron James to play defense with their hands behind their back. Nobody accused the refs of liking James Harden more, but once calls don't go their way, it's the refs' fault? Yeah. That's pretty much how it works in the NBA.
Nailed it.
Solid text, and you've got it laid out perfectly right there.
I didn't see any of the game last night because I was dialed into the Kings-Warriors game, but was it a case of, did you see any of it?
I did.
Was it a case of poor officiating, or was it like James Harden wasn't getting the touch fouls that he normally gets?
There were some sketchy
when he
calls.
Throws his arms in the air and screams after getting
There were a couple of offensive calls that I think James Harden feels like he should have gotten and he didn't. There were a couple of calls that were called offensive fouls as opposed to blocking. That happened to James Harden, and I think it happened to Chris Paul twice. There was nothing sketchy about the officiating. Like James Harden, he's entering that. I feel like with Russell Westbrook, you love him or you hate him. I don't feel like people are indifferent to Russell Westbrook.
Sure.
I think James Harden is the same. You love him or you hate him. I don't think people are indifferent to him. And those who hate him are looking at it like, dude, quit bitching. Like you go to the free throw line more than anyone in the entire league. Knock it off.
He's led the league in free throws per game like 5 out of the last 6 years.
Right, and those that dislike him are looking at it the same way you did. Did he just not flail enough? Is he just not getting the calls that he always got? There was nothing in my mind sketchy about the way the game was officiated last night. And Chris Paul and James Harden. James Harden, I don't think James Harden complains a lot about officiating. And so when he does, you remember it. Chris Paul complains a lot. Mm-hmm. And he says a lot about officiating, even if it's indirectly, even if it's subtly or passive-aggressively. He'll make it a point to point out officiating. But there was nothing sketchy about what went on last night. James Harden, and here's I think what has got James Harden attention. He committed 4 charges on Thursday. That's tied for the most by any player in a game this season, and the most for Harden in a game over the last 5 seasons. And the most glaring statistic, 3 of those charges came in the fourth quarter. As we mentioned, James Harden scored 30 points. That extends his 30-point streak to 32. Russell Westbrook will attempt to extend his triple-double streak tonight when the Oklahoma City Thunder get back in action against the Utah Jazz. I note that specifically because I don't know how many people are tuning in to see the Oklahoma City Thunder. Obviously, I will. But I didn't realize that the Sacramento Kings are going to take on the Oklahoma City Thunder on the second night of a back-to-back for Russell Westbrook and Paul George there. So that is of note for Kings fans headed into tomorrow night's game.
And they're sneaky still chasing the Jazz. Like
For
mathematically.
sure. Mm-hmm.
I know people think the Jazz are going to kind of pull away here and get it together, but the Kings going into last night, I think, were 2 games behind them.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of scoreboard watching. The team that the Kings are watching the most, or at least I would think Kings fans are watching the most, is the Los Angeles Clippers, who are sitting in the 8th spot right now. There's a lot of conversation about whether the Clippers actually want to make the playoffs or not, given the fact that if they make the playoffs by 1 game and they head into that 4-game series against likely the Golden State Warriors, they lose their first-round draft pick. So we'll see how Doc Rivers and Jerry West and that group there approaches the final. I give Lawrence Frank no credit. Sorry, Lawrence Frank as well, how those guys approach this final 20-plus game stretch for the Los Angeles Clippers. But, unfortunately, and again, it's the NBA, they take on the Memphis Grizzlies tonight. So the Grizzlies were a disaster before the break. There's no telling what they'll be after the break. But those are the scoreboard watching games that you've got tonight, Utah and Oklahoma City. That'll be on ESPN. And then keep an eye on the Clippers and the Grizzlies as well. Kings lose last night, 125 to 123. Were we able to track down those clips from? We weren't. So there was high praise coming from members of the Golden State Warriors last night. We'll talk about that in just a minute. Do we have the Petkus moment of the game here, Kyle?
Right wing feed to the corner to Bogey. Out now to Corey Brewer. Launches for 3. Corey Brewer's first basket as a member of the Sacramento Kings is a 3-pointer that ties the game at 37. And we're going to make that your Petkus Brothers moment of the game.
Thank you, G-Man. Get the spectacular backyard you've always wanted with a beautiful Petkus Brothers patio or sunroom. It's the best price, best value guaranteed every day. Damien, what's that over there? Oh, it's the Petkus Brothers.
What are you pointing at?
The Petkus Brothers. They're over there. It's a bit. It's this bit we do where we're like,
you should have let me in on the bit. Like I wasn't aware. Like, are you pointing to Jason and Nemanja? Are you pointing to Cody?
Yeah,
I don't know what
Petkus
you're pointing
Brothers.
at. It's like I had no idea those two were related.
I thought I did that last time you were in, and you were in on it. You were not. That's my fault.
It is your fault.
I'm gonna wear that one.
As the text line pointed out many times this morning, most things that go wrong are your fault.
Yeah. It's absolutely right. I'm going to wear that.
The fact that Buddy Hield did not take that 30-foot three-pointer last night to beat the Golden State Warriors, we all believe it is your fault. But the Kings do lose last night to the Golden State Warriors in Oakland, 125 to 123. A couple of things I want to throw your way. Here's a quote. That's the 4th game that we deserve to lose against them. But we just figure it out at the end of games. Sometimes you're not going to win it with the team game and the way we always play. Sometimes you're just going to have to play street ball. You know what I'm saying? I think tonight, throughout spurts of the game, both teams did that. That's Kevin Durant. More, they're a good team. They're scrappy, young, probably the fastest team in the history of the NBA. They never quit, got a lot of young talent, and they're putting it all together. That's Draymond Green. I love their team, and I love what they're doing. I said it before the game. Every time we play them, it's high energy and beautiful basketball. They are tough to guard. They put a lot of pressure on you, so who knows what is going to happen down the stretch. A lot of really good teams battling for the playoffs, but they are really good. That's Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr, Draymond Green, Kevin Durant, all talking about your Sacramento Kings last night. For a bit more context, the Warriors gave up 121.8 points per game to the Sacramento Kings in their 4-game regular season sweep. That's the most points per game allowed in a sweep of 4+ games over the past 25 seasons, according to ESPN Stats and Information.
The Warriors want no parts of the Kings in a playoff series.
They're all learning experiences. The top teams, for us, I think it was the Lakers, my rookie year, that 2009-2010 championship team that we wanted to get up for every game, and we'd always play our best. But I think that year it never worked out in our favor, so just one of those games we were excited for. But now, being on the other side, you've got to understand we got to take everybody's best shot. They want to beat us really bad, but thankfully we came out on top more often than not. But I definitely have been on the other side of the equation and understand what it feels like. That, Steph Curry talking about the Sacramento Kings. One more quote from Draymond Green that I think Kings fans are really going to dig. At some point, it'll definitely be both of us in the playoffs. It may happen this year. They're right there. Maybe not. We'll see, but it's coming soon. As far as a rivalry, man, they're talented. I think rivalry, no disrespect to them, but the other team got to win some games before it can really be a rivalry. But I have no doubt in my mind that that team is going to win a lot of games coming up here soon. Again, Draymond Green on your Sacramento Kings.
Not that big of a deal. He hands out compliments all the time.
Oh, he's
super nice.
Super friendly guy.
Real sweetheart.
The Kings did a lot right last night. But the barometers that you use to measure wins and losses, other than the final score, sometimes they're deceitful when you're playing the Golden State Warriors. Rebounds is one. If you're a Kings fan, you always want to win the rebounding battle. Well, they did that last night, 52-49. One thing the Kings are terrible in, free throw attempts. They led the way last night. They shot 27 of 34 as the Golden State Warriors shot 20 of 24. Kings, again, did a lot right last night. They were just playing the Golden State Warriors. We'll step out. We'll come back. More in the Kings game if you want to get in on the phone lines. I see some of you do. 339-1140, 1-800-920-1140. The Pelicans will play tonight. Will Anthony Davis? We've got the answer to that question next. Tickets to see Luke Bryan coming up 1 hour from now. Make your plans to be with us. Luke Bryan, August 25th, the Lake Tahoe Outdoor Arena. You want to get in and be a part of the show, you can. 339-1140, 1-800-920-1140. That, of course, is the Fire Wings hotline. Try one of their delicious 21 flavors of wings today. Fire Wings, just wing it. You can also get us on the Jiffy Lube text line here at 44-1140. So the Kings lose last night, 125-123. We're scoreboard watching as the Oklahoma City Thunder take on the Utah Jazz. We're scoreboard watching the Los Angeles Clippers and the Memphis Grizzlies. And then we'll keep an eye on what the Lakers do this weekend as well as they come back from 19 points down to beat the Houston Rockets last night. Anthony Davis will play for the New Orleans Pelicans when their season resumes tonight in a reduced capacity. The tentative plan, according to ESPN, is for Anthony Davis to play 20 to 25 minutes per game. Anthony Davis is currently averaging 36 minutes per game this season. He's played as many as 34 and as little as 15 when he left early because of that shoulder injury in games since returning to the lineup following his trade demand. Obviously, Dell Demps has been fired. We'd cover that extensively. Danny Ferry has taken over as the interim general manager. We noted yesterday that Danny Ferry had been attempting to convince the NBA to allow the Pelicans to sit Anthony Davis for the remainder of the season. I don't know the extent of that conversation. It hasn't been reported on. We've had no sources within the Pelicans or the NBA to give us some details on that. However, the fact that Anthony Davis is playing moving forward probably tells you how the conversation went. The fact that he's playing 20 to 25 minutes per game is absurd. This whole situation is ridiculous. Jason has noted it many times. They got this all wrong. Dell Demps, God bless him, was an absolute idiot for not trading Anthony Davis because the belief, you got to wait it out. You got to wait for Danny Ainge. You got to wait till July 1st. If Dell Demps had been responsible and had been listening to the lowdown, he would have known. We had a public service announcement addressed to Dell Demps only. Dude, you're not going to make it till July 1st. He didn't even make it till the end of the season. And now Danny Ferry's got to maneuver this because he is applying for a job here. He's trying out for the general manager gig for the New Orleans Pelicans, and he's currently overseeing the most important stretch of their franchise history. The Pelicans blow this, and I don't think this is even a slight exaggeration. If the Pelicans blow this, basketball could cease to exist in New Orleans. Because I think they're already on that cliff right now. It's just a question of whether they're stepping off or not. And with Seattle constantly looming over every struggling NBA franchise, with Adam Silver, I'm guessing, going to be very receptive to a potential move to Las Vegas. The Pelicans, I think, are next on that watch right now that we're just going to keep an eye on. And they botched this deal with Anthony Davis. That's the end of their franchise as far as I see it because they're struggling as it is.
Right, unless the Anthony Davis deal that eventually happens, which we're guessing this summer, right? Like there's no chance he's on the team to start next year?
No.
We're just going with that. So unless this deal they do this summer results in a playoff berth next year, it feels like Anthony Davis leaving is also the Pelicans leaving.
Okay, yeah.
Does that?
No.
Very,
that's how I feel. No,
okay.
I feel the same way. I don't know what they could get in return.
If they let's say the Lakers deal happens with Kuzma and Lonzo and draft picks and all that, and then Kuzma and Lonzo and Ingram all just hit their max peak value, like they're really good. Okay, then maybe it works.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I just have a really hard time. Like the goal of a franchise is to get a superstar player. If you can't hold on to him and build around him, that's tough.
I'm sorry, are you talking about the Kings or are you talking about? I mean, because that's what the Kings did, right? Like they traded their superstar player,
and it ended up working out,
and it worked. Right. But
that's not a good model to follow.
No, it's not. But basketball wasn't in danger in Sacramento. I feel like basketball in New Orleans is in danger.
I want to, just so people don't misinterpret what you said, when they made the DeMarcus Cousins trade, basketball was not in danger in Sacramento.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
When the deal, with Anthony Davis, basketball is in danger in New Orleans.
Correct. Yes.
And the approach now that we're going to play him 20 to 25 minutes per game, it's insulting to Anthony Davis. It's insulting to your fan base, and it's just appeasing the NBA, who really probably in this case should step in and say, guys, forget it.
Are they that concerned about their fan base?
I believe the NBA is, yeah.
I think the NBA is because there's a franchise there.
Oh, are the Pelicans?
But I don't think Gail Benson.
Oh, no, I don't think they're concerned about the 7 people that show up to their games.
Definitely not. They know them all by name. It's like, that's Bob. That's Donna.
Bob and Donna are married. They've been married for 57 years. And the only reason they're here is because they can't get tickets to see the Saints. That's why they're here. As a matter of fact, the reason most people are in this arena right now is because they can't get on the season ticket list for the New Orleans Saints, which is what everybody in New Orleans cares about. Except for Master P's family. They're here every game.
It's Bob.
And they are the biggest stars in the building when they walk in the door, by the way.
It's Bob, Donna, and then Master
Percy.
P and family.
That's Percy. A sea murder over there.
Is it Romeo? Isn't that his?
That's Silk the Shocker. They are bigger.
You pulled out a Silk the Shocker reference on a Friday. I am upset.
The No Limit Soldiers are more famous than the New Orleans Pelicans. Like every member of the Miller family. It's Miller, right? Percy Miller?
Yeah.
Every member of the Miller family is more famous than everyone on the Pelicans except Anthony Davis.
That's
The
a
offensive
fact.
line
That's a fact.
of the New Orleans Saints is more famous than anyone other than Anthony Davis on the New Orleans Pelicans. And you right now probably can't name a Saints offensive line.
Ryan Ramczyk, I think is his name.
That is such a made-up name. Ramczyk? He's an offensive lineman, and his name is
Ramczyk, I think. I'm going to look it up.
You look that up. We'll step out. We'll come back. We mentioned DeMarcus Cousins. We want you to hear what he said about the NCAA. And the NBA proposes a lower age limit for the NBA draft. Is that a coincidence? Great timing? We'll discuss that as the drive continues here on this Friday.
Now, your Sports 1140 KHTK update. Brought to you by J.R. Putman Plumbing, Heating, and Air.
This is Kyle Madson with your top stories on Sports 1140. It was another close game between the Kings and Warriors, but Golden State once again prevailed 125-123. Marvin Bagley had a monster game, though, with 28 points and 14 rebounds. Sacramento is off today. They're in Oklahoma City tomorrow to take on the Oklahoma City Thunder. Elsewhere in the NBA, it was the Cavs over the Suns, 111-98. The 76ers over the Heat, 106-102. Portland knocked off the Nets in Brooklyn, 113-99. It was a wild game in Milwaukee, but the Bucks came out on top, 98-97 against the Celtics. And the Lakers rode a huge game from LeBron James to a 111-106 victory against the Houston Rockets. The Lakers are now just a game back of the Kings in the race for the 8 seed, while the Clippers, they were idle last night. They are now a game and a half up on Sacramento for the final playoff spot. Those are your top stories. Now back to the drive with Damien filling in for Dave on Sports 1140 KHTK.
We appreciate you so much for being with us. Keep those texts coming here on the Jiffy Lube text line at 441140. Someone just woke up and saw the Don Nelson picture for the first time this morning. They saw Don Nelson in his current state. He's looking good, and he's feeling even better.
Coach, I know you live in Hawaii, right? So
Yeah, I've been smoking some pot.
There you go.
Yeah, but I never smoked when I played or coached, so it's new to me. But anyway, I'm doing that. And,
I think Don Nelson.
It's more legal now than it's ever been.
I think Don Nelson's still afraid David Stern's going to fine him. Like, oh, I wasn't doing it when I was playing or coaching or anything. Like David Stern's going to come out of retirement and like retroactively fine and suspend Don Nelson's entire career because he was smoking weed through his coaching time. Don Nelson does not look or sound like a guy who was just introduced to weed.
No.
Like this game is not new to him.
Go look at any photo of Don Nelson in the last ever
Yeah.
and tell me that.
He used to coach like in Hawaiian shirts. Like, come on, man.
Not quite.
Sort of.
But he would just have like his gut hanging out the bottom of his shirt. He'd go black t-shirt, black blazer with a little bit of the belly showing out the bottom.
Who would you rather?
That's a guy who doesn't care a lot.
Who would you rather party with right now? Don Nelson or Bill Walton?
Oh man.
Because you couldn't survive a party where they're both at.
Right. I'm picking Don Nelson because I don't think I could survive the substances that Bill Walton is into.
Yeah, Bill Walton might be into a little bit more than the legalized drugs. Might be. I'm guessing his Infinity for the Grateful Dead. He might have
I think Bill Walton does the kind of stuff that you keep with you forever.
You know, you know what would be the best story? If Bill Walton never did drugs. Like if this was just him. If this is just totally his personality and he never did a single drug in his life.
I'm going to confirm that's not the case.
Okay, I believe you. I'm just saying it would be such a better story if he had never done drugs. You're like, no, this is just me. What do you mean?
Like, what? No, I'm very, very anti.
This is just total normal behavior here.
He's the best.
Oh, he is, dude. He is absolutely. I couldn't work with him like Jason had to, but I get a kick out of him, biting live candles on the air. Lit candles.
Dave Pash deserves all of the awards.
Dave Pash is a hell of a professional, man.
He's so good.
He is a hell of a professional.
Coach, I know you live in Hawaii, right? So
Yeah, I've been smoking some pot.
I can't get over that. Like, what does that have to do with Hawaii? Is Hawaii suddenly the state of pot?
I think because it's been weirdly snowing in Hawaii. I think that you live in Hawaii, right? And I think she's expecting him to go, yeah, I live in Hawaii. And she go, what do you think about the snow? Did it snow where you are? Weather's crazy.
Has it been snowing? I don't know. I've been too high to find out. I think what he wanted to do was just address his appearance right away, because saying I smoke a lot of pot immediately alleviates any concern about the slick back hair.
Yeah.
He's got a gold chain, just a randomly placed gold chain around his neck with his black T-shirt.
He might as well be wearing a sign that says, that's the equivalent. Him saying that would be like me being yeah, I wear a lot of hats.
I feel like we need to get a shirt made that just says I party with Don Nelson.
Okay.
I feel like that would be totally appropriate. DeMarcus Cousins, he ain't here for the BS.
Well, knowing what I know now, college is bullshit. College basketball, NCAA is bullshit. So my advice to him is do what's best for you and your family. But obviously, college is. You can't really. It does nothing for you at this point. You've proven you're, the number one pick coming out. You've proven your talent. Get ready for the next level. It's happening. That's my opinion, knowing what I know now.
DeMarcus Cousins weighing in on the Zion Williamson situation. More from DeMarcus.
That being said, just how crooked the whole NCAA business is. And I actually saw a post the other day where it was, I think the highest ticket for that UNC Duke game was $2,500, $3,500.
That's the lowest though.
How much is that? How much does Zion Williamson see? That's who they're coming to see.
Yeah, and DeMarcus is right there, and that's the conversation that he encompassed a lot of different conversations that have been happening surrounding Zion Williamson over the course of the last couple of days here. He addresses not playing anymore, sitting out, focusing on the NBA draft, which has been a big topic of conversation amongst former players, amongst current players, amongst anyone who's been associated with the NCAA. And coincidentally, at least according to the NBA, they formally proposed the changing the draft eligibility age requirement from 19 to 18. Now, to be completely fair for the story, we have been covering this and talking about this for months. This is something that Adam Silver and Michelle Roberts have been working on for a very long time. What we've been told in the past is that they were trying to come up with an alternative to just lowering the age and going back to the formula that they used to have. We have heard things like making the G League a true developmental type place where you can be drafted straight out of high school. We have heard things where the NBA would want to, if you could come out of high school, so the draft eligibility requirement would still be 18, but if you went to college, you would have to go for 2 years. So we've heard a variety of those types of different things. We haven't heard any follow-up about what proposal they actually submitted to the Players Association, but we do know that the main topic of it is lowering the age from 19, where it was before, which was a David Stern rule, back down to 18.
By doing that, you are allowing the players, when they graduate high school, they should be able to start earning the money that they are worth.
Sure.
And by not allowing them to do that, you're robbing them of a year of making 7+ figures. Mm-hmm. And that's the right thing for the NBA to do. Say most people, when they graduate high school, can become NBA draft eligible. It's the right thing to do.
What you hear a lot of people talk about, you'll hear particularly former players talk about the clock. You want to start the clock. Mm-hmm. Not on the first contract. If you're the number one overall pick, so Zion Williamson right now is good for $44.2 million guaranteed over, and I think that includes his rookies have, I think, third and fourth year options. So that's 4 years, $44.2 million guaranteed. But what you hear players talk about is the second contract, because the second contract over that same time frame roughly is worth twice that amount. And then once you get to the third contract, you're talking about just insane amount of money that keeps going up year after year after year. So Adam Silver and Michelle Roberts, who is the head of the Players Association, the executive director of the Players Association, they've been working to get this done. Adam Silver has been pressing Michelle Roberts to require that player agents furnish all teams with medical information on draft prospects, a lot of that stemming from guys like Michael Porter Jr. The league also wanted to mandate players' attendance and some level of participation in the pre-draft combine. So there's a lot more to it than just lowering the age and saying, okay, you can enter the NBA draft straight out of high school. There are a lot of other pieces to this that the NBA Players Association would have to approve so they could ratify the CBA before it ends here in a couple of years and get this made effective immediately.
And the NBA is in such a unique position because the NFL could never do this. The NFL could not have an 18-year-old come in. There is physical development that happens between 18 and 20 or 21 that is imperative to surviving an NFL game. That's not the case in the NBA.
Yeah.
There's no reason to have the guys go to school for 1 year. And if anything, I think it sets back both the NBA and college basketball by requiring them to do that.
I'm just looking at a mock draft right now of like the top 10 prospects. Like so many of them are freshmen.
They're like all freshmen.
Right. I mean, several of them are on Duke, by the way. The first two picks, Zion Williamson and R.J. Barrett. You got Cam Reddish in here, DeAndre Hunter, Nasir Little, all freshmen, man.
All guys, not all of them. I shouldn't say all guys. Zion would have been a lottery pick, a top 3 or 5 lottery pick, had he just gone straight to the draft from high school. I think R.J. Barrett is probably a top 5 lottery pick. Like
yeah.
The draft board doesn't move much after this 1 year.
Right.
It's just a wasted. Wasted year.
I think I remember when when David Stern put this into effect. Like, was this like the Sebastian Telfairs and the kind of random straight to high school guys straight from high school to the pros guys that didn't really work out, and there was this belief they got to have that 1 year under college under him. Like Derrick Rose probably would have been the top pick without college. You know what I mean? Like
Derrick Rose was the top pick without college. Right, let's be real.
Yeah, very true. What player? The only player that I can really think of, and I don't know what it would have been like before the season started, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't remember DeAndre Ayton being the consensus number 1 overall pick when last year's season started. I don't remember DeAndre Ayton being the consensus number 1 overall pick during the season. But somehow, after Arizona's hasty exit from the NCAA tournament, it was Ayton. I don't know what happened from the beginning of the season to Arizona getting eliminated that made it all about DeAndre Ayton, but something shifted during that year, and I don't know that it was necessarily his play.
I remember him being talked about as the top pick for quite a while. Because I don't pay a ton of attention to college basketball. I pay attention to college basketball in the scope of the NBA draft, and I just remember Ayton's name coming up a lot.
I remember the conversation. Like, it's not DeAndre Ayton came out of nowhere. But when the draft got here, he was the consensus number 1 overall pick. There was no drama to it. Every single draft analyst we spoke to had DeAndre Ayton at number 1, and the conversation was surrounding Bagley and Luka, and sometimes a Jaren Jackson Jr. or a random other reference there at number 2. But that's where the conversation lied. I don't remember DeAndre Ayton being the consensus number 1 overall pick during the season. I don't even remember it during the tournament. I don't remember it until after the tournament happened.
Do you remember the thing that solidified it for me? Because a lot of people I remember people saying it, and when I was watching, it was like, okay, this is just like it's a skilled 7-footer. That's the kind of guy who's going to go for it. And then it was the Pac-12 title game.
Okay.
And I think he had like 25 and 18 or something. He was just a monster in the Pac-12 title game. And that was, I think, what really solidified it was.
And then they were eliminated one game later, right? Didn't they lose in the first round of the NCAA tournament?
Yes. Yeah, they did.
Like one game later.
And I think that was part of it.
Arizona had a whole lot going on last year.
Right, they weren't that good, and DeAndre Ayton kind of carried them. And
someone's asking, you guys don't remember the NBA product suffer. Dude, it's not better. It's not better because of a one and done. Like if Zion Williamson, rather than, I'm trying to use the right term, mild knee sprain, a day-to-day mild knee sprain. What if he had torn his Achilles? What if his Achilles had ruptured and he's out for the next 12 months, which takes him out of next season? That suffers, that kills the NBA product. But guys got to do, coaches, they've got to do a better job of analyzing these potential draft picks. And I understand that is an incredibly difficult job trying to figure out how an 18-year-old, because really, you're not necessarily, you want your 18-year-old to be good. You want your 19-year-old to be good. But if you're drafting a player that high, you really want them to be good at 20 and 21 because you want to be the team that signs him to the second deal. That's what my argument, and I'm going to try to be careful with this because this started a full-on argument last time I said this. Tyreek Evans did not work out for the Sacramento Kings. I get he was Rookie of the Year. I get he had a tremendous rookie season. But the fact is he started to suffer injuries. And if you have a guy who was drafted in, I'd argue the lottery, but I'll narrow it down to say top 5, top 6 players, and you don't re-sign them to their second deal, they didn't work out for you. Tyreek Evans did not sign a second deal with the Sacramento Kings.
Correct.
Therefore, he did not work out. Coaches who analyze these players, whether they're coming out of high school or playing a year in the game, a year in the college game, you're trying to figure out how they're going to play at the age of 20 and 21 rather than at the age of 18 and 19. You're trying to foresee their development, which is just a brutal task for these coaches. And I think one of the reasons we're so enamored with Zion Williamson is because we're superficial. The way that he looks. He now, at the age of 19, is a grown-ass man. He is the size of LeBron James. Yep. He has almost the same level of athletic ability that LeBron James has. Therefore, we have this thing that we can see with our eyes that will lead us to believe, we don't have to foresee, we don't have to see off into the future because we see it now. We see something now in him that we don't see in others. Harry Giles, great example. Well, we love Harry Giles, but we want him to be bigger. We want him to put on size. We want him to be stronger. You can go through every skinny player that was ever. Kevin Durant can't bench press 135 pounds. Therefore, he should not be the second pick. Sam Presti looked at that like, y'all are stupid.
Yeah.
I'm going to take Kevin Durant second, whether he can bench press 135 pounds or 35 pounds or no pounds at all. I'm going to take him second, and it worked out for him. But they were also, I'm sure, looking at it like, how can this skinny kid who just played for the University of Texas develop under our system, and what will he look like 2, 3, 4 years from now?
I think the idea that the one and done helps the NBA product is flawed because you could then posit that, okay, so make it 2 years, make it 3 years. And that will help the NBA if every player coming in is 21 or 22. But how many All-Stars stayed in school for more than a year or 2 years?
Oh, I'm sure in this day, not many.
Right.
Like I'm sure there are very, very few.
So forcing those guys to go to school for 1 year, I don't think is helping.
No, I don't think it's helping anything. this is an interesting question. Where would Scal have gone without going to college?
I think Scal would. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna. No, it's fine. I was gonna say I would think he would have gone higher, right? Because
so.
he didn't do anything at Kentucky. He was one of the more fascinating declaring for the NBA draft stories to me, because he barely played at Kentucky, and Coach Cal, we had him on shortly after the draft when Scal was drafted. He had me so hyped on Scal Labissiere. I wanted the jersey hanging up at the Raptors. I wanted one on my back. I wanted to go to Kentucky when we were done talking to Coach Cal. He had me completely hyped and motivated for it. And it took me about 2 hours to come down from that high, realizing this is why he's a master recruiter. This is why he is who he is, because he can get you hype about something that may not necessarily require it.
And it's important to note that not every top high school player would go into the draft. I think there are still players who are really good NBA players who would still go to college for a year or two.
A lot of people think this is going to be the Bronny rule, the LeBron James Jr. rule. They're trying to get this into effect before Bronny becomes 18. Now, I think that's absurd. I don't think, I just think we're still several years away from that. But LeBron has talked about his son wanting his son to play for Coach K. Do you think he being LeBron James, would rather send his son, his oldest son, to Duke, or if that's 4 years from now, Coach K would be 76, if Coach K is still around, or to the NBA?
It depends. If he is going to be a top 3 lottery pick, I think he goes into the draft. But if he's like a fringe lottery guy, I think he absolutely goes to school for a year and tries to boost his draft stock. And that's what I think a lot of the top recruits would do. If they weren't going to be a top 3, top 5, whatever the number is, I think they would still choose to go to school. Unless they work out something with the G League where they make it so your draft picks can go straight there.
That's the other part I'm waiting to find out more about in terms of this proposal that the NBA made yesterday is how is the G League factoring in this? The NBA is working extremely hard to make the G League something more than what it is. Because right now what the G League feels like is guys on the fringe of playing in the NBA. Like when we're talking about the G League, we're mostly talking about like the 12th man on the bench. And the NBA wants it to be more than that. But how? Like how can they make it more than that? Could the G League be an option rather than the NCAA? Could being drafted by the G League be an option over, committing to Duke for a year, or Kentucky for a year, or Michigan State for a year, or the random, what was Ben Simmons, LSU for a year?
Half a year.
Right. Again, this isn't a higher education situation here with these basketball players, because you're in for a semester and then you're gone. I don't know how this is going to play out, but I'm anxious to hear more about this proposal that came out yesterday, because that's the caliber player Zion Williamson is. That is the caliber personality is, and that is what media people in the NBA believe his value is to the NBA. When he suffers an injury in front of the world the way he did the other night in a very, very, it couldn't have happened in a more high-profile game for college basketball in front of a more high-profile audience. That is, something went wrong. Uh-oh. Okay. All right. We were talking about the age proposal. Let's address that. Every major player in the NBA is being asked about the NCAA and collegiate rules. LeBron didn't even go to college. He's being asked about it. DeMarcus Cousins spent a year at Kentucky. Now, what you didn't hear in the sound bites that we played is, DeMarcus Cousins talking about the NCAA is BS and all of that. It's corrupt. We all know that. But he also said he had an amazing time in college.
I bet.
Like what you,
you're a god for 10 months.
Right, but somehow we have to figure out a way to separate those. We're talking about like a college, an 18-year-old's experience, an 18-year-old dude who is the absolute man, his experiences in college, versus, hey, I need to start my career. I don't want to be the next DeMarcus Cousins or Anthony Davis or Derek. I want to be the next LeBron James. I want to be the next guy who has shows produced with his name on it. I want to be the next guy who has movies produced that nobody knows are actually my movies. I want to be that guy. I want to have an agent in the league who reports to a business that backtracks to me. I want to be that guy. And some people would look at the NBA. Like, I believe LeBron, he loves basketball. That's not open for discussion. But I also believe he operates himself as a business better than any professional athlete on the planet. Tiger Woods, I think it used to be Tiger Woods, but Tiger Woods isn't of the caliber to be at that, be considered that anymore in my eyes, because he's just not the same player he was. LeBron is still the same player, and he operates himself as a business better than anyone on the face of the earth.
He's not a businessman. He's a businessman.
Well done.
Thank you.
We'll step out. We'll come back. Let's talk more about your Sacramento Kings as they lose last night, 125-123. They did a lot right. There was a change to the starting lineup, and we saw the debut of Corey Brewer. We'll talk about that as the drive continues here on Sports 1140 KHTK.